Before you scroll. Before you tell yourself you'll watch this later. Don't skip this message. This is urgent. Not because of me. Not because of this video. But because there is someone watching right now who desperately needs to hear what God is about to say. You didn't find this message by accident. Out of all the videos you could have watched, out of all the voices competing for your attention, you ended up here. And maybe you've been wondering why. Maybe you've been carrying a pain that nobody sees. Maybe you've been trying to move forward, but every step feels heavier than the last. Maybe you finally let them go. And now, you feel lost. You thought letting go would bring peace. You thought it would bring closure. You thought it would bring relief. Instead, you're left with questions. Questions that keep repeating in your mind. Did I make the right decision? What if I gave up too soon? Why does it still hurt? Why can't I stop thinking about them? Will I ever feel whole again? If that's you, stay with me. Because God has a message for your heart today. And it may change everything. The pain of letting go. Let's be honest. Letting go is one of the hardest things a person can do. Because when you let someone go, you're not just releasing a person. You're releasing dreams, plans, memories, possibilities, a future you imagined. And that's what makes it hurt so much. You weren't only attached to them. You were attached to what you hoped they would become. You were attached to the life you thought you'd build together. You were attached to the picture in your mind. And when that picture breaks, the heart struggles to understand. That's why even when you know you made the right choice, it can still hurt. Even when God was protecting you, it can still hurt. Even when walking away was necessary, it can still hurt. Pain doesn't always mean you made the wrong decision. Sometimes pain is simply proof that you cared deeply. And God knows that. God understands every tear. Every sleepless night. Every moment you've stared at your phone. Every moment you've wanted to reach out. Every moment you've questioned yourself. He understands all of it. And today he says, "My child, I saw everything." He saw what happened behind closed doors. He saw the conversations nobody else heard. He saw the tears nobody else noticed. He saw the things you tolerated. The things you forgave. The things you endured. And he knows the full story. Even when nobody else does. Why God allowed the separation. Now listen carefully. Because this may be the part you've been missing. Sometimes God removes people from our lives because he sees what we cannot. We see emotions. God sees outcomes. We see today. God sees tomorrow. We see what we want. God sees what we need. And sometimes the most loving thing God can do is close a door we're begging him to keep open. I know that's difficult to hear. But it's true. Because not everyone who enters your life is meant to stay forever. Some people are lessons. Some people are assignments. Some people are seasons. And some people are preparation. But only a few are destiny. The problem is that we often try to turn temporary people into permanent people. And when God removes them, we think he's hurting us. When in reality, he may be protecting us. Protecting your peace. Protecting your future. Protecting your purpose. Protecting your heart. And one day, you may look back and realize that the thing you cried over was actually the thing that saved you. God's urgent message. If you're listening right now, God wants you to hear this. Stop blaming yourself. Stop replaying every mistake. Stop analyzing every conversation. Stop wondering if you could have done more. Stop carrying guilt that doesn't belong to you. Because some endings are not your fault. Some endings are not failures. Some endings are divine redirections. And God says, I did not bring you this far to abandon you now. You may feel lost, but you are not forgotten. You may feel broken, but you are not beyond healing. You may feel alone, but you are not walking alone. Because even in this painful season, God is still working, still guiding, still healing, still preparing. And what feels like an ending today may become the beginning of something far greater than you can imagine. The reason you still think about them. Before we continue, don't skip this part, because I believe this section is going to answer a question many people have been carrying in silence. A question they don't ask their friends. A question they don't post online. A question they ask themselves late at night. The question is this. If I know I had to let them go, why can't I stop thinking about them? Maybe that's you. Maybe you've prayed. Maybe you've cried. Maybe you've tried to move on. Maybe you've deleted the messages. Deleted the photos. Deleted the memories from your phone. Yet somehow, the memories still live in your mind. You hear a song and think about them. You drive past a place and think about them. You wake up and think about them. You go to sleep and think about them. And sometimes you wonder if you'll ever truly be free. Listen carefully. Because God wants you to understand something. Missing someone does not mean they belong in your future. Read that again. Missing someone does not mean they belong in your future. It simply means they were part of your past. And your heart is learning how to live without what it once became attached to. That's normal. That's human. That's healing. But the enemy wants to use your memories against you. He wants you to romanticize what hurt you. He wants you to remember only the good parts. Only the happy moments. Only the laughter. Only the connection. And forget the tears. Forget the confusion. Forget the anxiety. Forget the nights you begged God for answers. Forget the moments you felt unwanted. Forget the times your spirit knew something wasn't right. Because if the enemy can convince you that the past was perfect, you'll become trapped there. And God cannot move you forward if you're constantly looking backward. That's why God says, stop turning old chapters into your future. That chapter taught you something. It changed you. It shaped you. But it does not get to define the rest of your story. You are grieving more than a person. Now here's something many people never realize. You are not only grieving a person. You're grieving a dream. A future. An expectation. A possibility. The hardest thing about heartbreak isn't losing what existed. It's losing what you hoped would exist. Think about that. You're mourning birthday celebrations that never happened. Conversations that never happened. Vacations that never happened. Memories that never happened. A future that never happened. And that's why it hurts so deeply. Because your heart invested in a possibility. But today God says, the future I have for you is bigger than the future you lost. Wow. Let that sink in. The future God has planned for you is bigger than the future that fell apart. Greater. Healthier. Stronger. More peaceful. More aligned with His purpose. And one day you'll understand why certain dreams had to die so better ones could live. God is healing you even when you don't feel it. Someone listening right now feels stuck. You keep saying, I should be over this by now. I should be stronger by now. I should be healed by now. But healing doesn't happen according to your schedule. Healing is a process. A sacred process. And sometimes God heals us slowly because He wants the healing to last. Think about a broken bone. A doctor doesn't rush the healing. Because rushed healing creates weakness. Proper healing creates strength. And God isn't interested in temporary healing. He wants complete healing. The kind of healing that changes how you love. How you trust. How you see yourself. How you see others. And even if you don't feel it today, healing is happening. Every prayer. Every lesson. Every tear. Every day you choose not to go back. Every day you choose growth over desperation. Healing is happening. The person you're becoming. Now listen very closely. Because this may be the most important part of today's message. God is not only removing people from your life. He's transforming you. The version of you before this heartbreak is not the same version listening right now. You're stronger. Wiser. More discerning. More aware. More dependent on God. And while you were focused on what you lost, God was focused on who you were becoming. Because your future requires a different version of you. A stronger version. A healthier version. A more confident version. A version that understands their worth. A version that no longer settles for less than God's best. And that's exactly what God has been creating. Not through comfort. Through growth. Not through ease. Through transformation. Not through getting everything you wanted. Through becoming everything He created you to be. An urgent word for the person who wants to go back. Now I need to speak directly to someone. Because I feel this strongly. There is a person listening who has been thinking about going back. Sending the text. Making the call. Reopening the door. Revisiting what God already helped you leave. And today God says, be careful. Because loneliness often disguises itself as love. Pain often disguises itself as purpose. Fear often disguises itself as faith. And when we're hurting, we become vulnerable to old patterns. Vulnerable to familiar pain. Vulnerable to relationships that God already delivered us from. Ask yourself this question. Are you missing them? Or are you missing the feeling of not being alone? Because those are two very different things. And sometimes we confuse one for the other. God is not asking you to move backward. He's asking you to trust Him forward. Even when it's difficult. Even when it's lonely. Even when you don't understand. Trust Him anyway. Something better is coming. Now I want to leave you with hope. Real hope. Not false hope. Not wishful thinking. But hope rooted in God's promises. The story is not over. The heartbreak is not the ending. The loss is not the ending. The loneliness is not the ending. This chapter may be painful, but it is still a chapter, not the entire book. God is still writing, still preparing, still restoring, still healing, still working. And one day, you're going to look back at this season, not with bitterness, not with regret, but with gratitude. Because you'll finally see what God was protecting you from. You'll finally understand what He was preparing you for. And you'll realize that letting go wasn't losing. It was making room. Making room for healing. Making room for peace. Making room for purpose. Making room for the future God already saw. So if you're still listening, hold on. Don't give up. Don't lose faith. Don't mistake a painful chapter for a hopeless future. Because God is not finished with your story. Not even close. We'll talk about the signs God is restoring your heart, why this season is preparing you for something greater, and the powerful breakthrough that often comes after letting go. Comment below, God is healing me. And remember, sometimes the bravest thing you'll ever do is trust God with what you had to leave behind. God is restoring what heartbreak tried to steal. Before we continue, I need you to promise me something. Don't skip this part. Because I believe this may be the message someone has been praying for. Not the person who feels strong. Not the person who already has all the answers. I'm talking about the person who feels exhausted. The person who is trying to heal but still hurts. The person who smiles in public but cries in private. The person who keeps asking God, when will this pain finally end? If that's you, listen carefully. Because heaven has a message for your heart today. And it begins with this truth. God is restoring what heartbreak tried to steal. The enemy thought heartbreak would destroy your faith. But you're still praying. The enemy thought heartbreak would destroy your hope. But you're still believing. The enemy thought heartbreak would destroy your future. But you're still moving forward. The enemy thought heartbreak would make you quit. Yet here you are. Still standing. Still listening. Still searching for God. And that matters more than you realize. Because every day you choose not to give up, you are winning a battle you cannot see. The breaking was not the end. Many people think brokenness is the end. God often uses it as the beginning. Think about that. A seed must break before it grows. A caterpillar must disappear before it becomes a butterfly. Gold must go through fire before it shines. And sometimes hearts must break before they become whole in a deeper way. I know that sounds strange. Because nobody wants heartbreak. Nobody asks for it. Nobody prays for it. But God can use what hurt you to transform you. He can use rejection to teach you your value. He can use loss to teach you dependence on Him. He can use disappointment to redirect your future. And one day, you'll realize that the thing that nearly destroyed you became the thing that changed you. Not because the pain was good, but because God was greater than the pain. The real reason God asked you to let go. Now listen closely. Because many people misunderstand this. You didn't let them go because you stopped caring. You let them go because you started trusting God. There is a difference. A huge difference. Sometimes faith means holding on. Sometimes faith means releasing. And one of the hardest acts of faith is placing someone in God's hands. Especially when you love them. Especially when you wanted things to work. Especially when part of your heart still wishes the story had ended differently. But God saw things you couldn't see. Conversations you didn't hear. Intentions you didn't know. Consequences you couldn't imagine. And because He loves you, He intervened. Not to punish you. To protect you. Remember that. God is not your enemy. He's your protector. Even when protection feels painful. The person you are becoming. Can I tell you something powerful? You are not the same person you were before this heartbreak. And that's a good thing. Before this season. You may have ignored red flags. Before this season. You may have accepted less than you deserved. Before this season. You may have confused attention with love. But now? You've learned. You've grown. You've matured. You've become more aware of your worth. And that growth is priceless. Because God isn't just concerned about who enters your life. He's concerned about who you become. And while you've been focused on the person you lost, God has been focused on the person you're becoming. A stronger person. A wiser person. A healthier person. A person capable of receiving what He has prepared next. The sign that healing is happening. Someone listening is wondering, how do I know if I'm healing? Here's a sign. You no longer cry every day. You no longer feel desperate. You no longer need answers from people who left. You no longer need closure from people who couldn't give it. You begin creating your own closure. You begin finding your own peace. You begin trusting God more than your emotions. And that's when healing starts becoming visible. Not overnight. Not instantly. But gradually. One day you wake up and realize the pain isn't controlling you anymore. The memories don't destroy you anymore. The heartbreak doesn't define you anymore. That's healing. And God is bringing you there. Step by step. Day by day. Prayer by prayer. Something new is coming. Now here's the part that excites me. Because I believe someone needs hope. Real hope. Not false hope. Not fantasy. Real hope. God never removes something without knowing what comes next. Never. When God closes a chapter, He already sees the next one. When God shuts a door, He already knows where He's leading you. When God asks you to release something, He already knows what He's preparing. And maybe that's why you're watching this. Because your focus has been on what left, while God's focus has been on what's coming. And what's coming may be greater than you imagine. Greater peace. Greater wisdom. Greater purpose. Greater relationships. Greater opportunities. Greater joy. Because God is not only a God of endings. He's a God of new beginnings. A message for the person who feels alone. I need to speak directly to someone. Because I feel this strongly. You've been feeling alone. Very alone. You've convinced yourself nobody understands. Nobody sees. Nobody cares. But God wants you to hear this. You are not alone. He was with you when your heart broke. He was with you when the tears fell. He was with you during the sleepless nights. He was with you when nobody answered the phone. He was with you when you felt abandoned. And He is with you now. The same God who carried you through your worst days is carrying you through this season too. You may not feel Him, but He's there. You may not see Him, but He's there. You may not understand Him, but He's there. And He isn't leaving. If you're still listening, I believe this is your confirmation. Your story is not over. Your future is not ruined. Your best days are not behind you. The relationship ended, but your life didn't. The chapter closed, but the book continues. And God is still writing, still healing, still restoring, still preparing. So stop measuring your future by your pain. Stop measuring God's plans by your current circumstances. Stop measuring tomorrow by yesterday's disappointment. Because God has a way of surprising people who refuse to quit. And in the final part, we're going to talk about the breakthrough after heartbreak, the blessing that often follows surrender, and the powerful message God wants you to carry into your next season. Comment below. God is restoring my heart. And remember, sometimes God removes someone from your life because He knows where you're going, and they were never meant to go there with you.